Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the One Nation Gamer Summer Circuit Feature Tournament number 4. We're 2 matches away from deciding the final player that will be joining us at the grand finals at PAX to compete for $25,000. We just saw Dart take out Silent Storm and make it to the finals of the feature. And now we're going to go into Chalky vs. Strivecro. Once again, I'm TJ, joined by Trump. Trump, these 2 players are players that have been around Hearthstone for a very long time. They both have pretty impressive resumes in their competitive Hearthstone careers. I know it's going to be tough to make a prediction, but I want to get your thoughts. Who's going to take it?
All right.
What?
Well, initial thought is both of these players are actually bringing a new fourth deck mage apiece. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't bringing the same mage. Strifecrow has been playing with some control mage. Freeze mage is the most likely choice of the two. So Strifecrow is taking the Silent Storm or the no patron strategy to the max here. With even a fourth deck, Strifecrow has elected not to bring one, which goes a bit to show that it's not like that dominant that you have to bring it. It's all the tournament decks are kind of prepared for it. That said, between these two lineups, I think it's a fairly even set. Like they do have 3 of the same decks, and then it's just Paladin versus Patron, which Warrior Patron tends to do better at. So slight edge to Chalky, perhaps.
Yeah, we say 3 of the same decks, but their decks are actually very different. Um, Chalky has Handlock, Stripecrow has Demon Zoo. Chalky has pure mid range, whereas Stripecrow has almost pure Face Hunter. And Strifecrow, I believe, is going to be going with some sort of control mage, and Chalky has what I'm pretty confidently is freeze mage. So even though they have the same classes, I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup because this is a very diverse deck lineup, at least deck list lineup. It may not look like it from the classes, but as far as deck list goes, these guys differ a lot in their game plans. And as you mentioned, I mean, it's pretty crazy that Strifecrow, even at this stage, didn't bring Patron Warrior. We saw even Silent Storm, who's not even really considered to be a big Patron Warrior player, chose it as his fourth deck going into the best of 7 format. So a bit of a bold choice, and we'll see if it's going to pay off for him. But right now, it's Chalky. I think has a little bit of edge as far as deck lists go.
All right, that's a bold choice. I'm looking forward to seeing what type of mage Strifecrow brought, perhaps the most. As it turns out, all of Strifecrow's decks actually punish Chalky's handlock a bit in particular, other than Zoo. So we could see Chalky struggle a bit with that one.
Strifecrow actually has been playing a decent amount of Mech Mage, Fell Reaver Mech Mage, sort of an aggressive Mech Mage on his stream. Maybe not so much towards the end of the week, but earlier in the week he was experimenting with that and playing around with it. So that is a possibility that Strifecrow might throw in a curveball. He's always known for that grinder mage, for the control mage, with like always Sludge Belter, Sylvanas, and Ragnaros. But I actually would not be too surprised to see him bring a more aggressive mage because he has played a lot of mech mage in the past.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with the grinder slash control mage because it is one of those sleeper decks which I feel like has the potential to be a great deck. Perhaps maybe if not now. And by the way, I actually think there's a potential that it's just severely underestimated right now. But after the grand tournament, I think with more tools, it may be able to be viable enough. It's one of the few decks which has a pretty favorable matchup against Patron Warrior. And Strifecrow, uh, the fourth decks again are submitted before you see the results. And you would usually expect like, okay, the people who brought Patron, they probably make it to the semifinals, or just you expect a lot of people to bring Patron anyways. So bringing a deck that is good against Patron and then like reasonable against the other decks seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I am really excited for the potential freeze mage versus control mage matchup, Trump. I don't know about you, but I'm just so excited for a 45-minute battle of the mages,
That'd
potentially.
be something. Very difficult to say who has the edge on that one, just because the matchup doesn't get played very often.
Mhm.
Um, Yesterday, or the day that Strifecrew played, which was yesterday, he played the most fascinating Paladin versus Handlock game that I've seen in a while. Where, to recap, he basically used 20 mana on hero powers.
Throughout the game, yeah, his first 8 turns, I believe, or he used hero power 6 of them. So like the only ones he didn't use was a turn one, and there was at one point in the game he had to fill up his mana doing something else. But
I actually don't think he even did that. I think every single turn other than turn one used the hero power. But maybe I missed one. It's true. This is going to end up disaster for Strafkrow though, because he got the one matchup which is not good against Handlock. He ran his Zoo into it.
yeah, a little bit rough, but there is still potential for Zoo Warlock to beat Handlock, but it's pretty unfavorable, especially since Chalky does have Molten Giant. I would not be surprised if he keeps it, as long as he knows that Strifecrow is running Zoo. Actually, he throws it away. Okay, a
I would have been
little bit
surprised at the keep. I am a little bit surprised at the Sun Fury Protector keep though. We got our webcams a bit off at the moment, but rest assured that oh, there we go, almost there
two
we go.
Chalkies. Okay, yeah,
So even though I said it's unfortunate that Strifecrow ran this in, it's not that this is unfavored for Zoo. It's actually about even. It's just unfortunate because all the other matchups were so favored, or they were favored for Strifecrow.
yeah. Maybe he
So
thought.
Chalky is actually very, very happy to take this even matchup.
Yeah. There's always some mind games going into uh, picking your decks in conquest format, but especially in best of seven, I know Chalky's in the boat where he just throws out a random deck, and I think Strifecrow might be in that boat as well. So just a little bit unfortunate that it lined up that way.
Yep,
And
Chalky with a very strong start as well. Coining out the Ancient Watcher, that gives Strafcrow some pause. He has to be very concerned about Owl. That's the most common reason why you would coin out the Ancient Watcher. This is also part of the benefit of knowing your opponent's deck, because if you were playing up against Hemlock, you would probably not want to do this play. Although we have seen Sonstorm do this play against even control decks.
yeah, Strifecrow does have power overwhelming to use on this egg, but even then it doesn't line up with the Ancient Watcher. Should be 1 damage short. Could go for the juggle if he wants next turn. But now Chalky, Strifecrow thought a lot about that turn. So Chalky needs to think, okay, what could Strifecrow possibly be thinking about to play on turn 2, whether or not he wants to play the egg or not.
Here we go. I think we're going to go for the 50-50 on the Juggler Power Overwhelming. Going to be a pretty big deal if he manages to take down the Ancient Watcher.
Yeah.
Or he just goes for face. We'll see.
I
Nope.
guess
Goes
it's
for the
not
Watcher.
that big of a deal because that Watcher's not really doing
Boom.
too much. He could go for a juggle next turn as well, but he does manage to hit it. The Ooze not going to be too valuable in this matchup.
Yep. Chalky with a slightly difficult decision. One obvious decision is just to Dark Bomb the Knife Juggler, but if you do that and you draw into Mountain Giant, you can't play it. So the other decision is to tap, but that basically takes the damage from that. A third decision is to tap and then do tap Dark Bomb next turn. But Chalky looks like he's thinking about doing something like tap Ooze.
He's starting to get to the point where he's taking a lot of pressure. Yep, and there's the Mountain
Curses.
Giant. Not able to play it, but can tap. You just have Ooze into Mountain Giant for next turn.
Yep, he's reluctant to play the Ooze because the Ooze isn't doing anything. And this is a turn where, well, The ooze protects from 4 damage, and that might be worthwhile. You have to kind of look at the big picture where, okay, so Strathcrow's got 7. I don't really want to take 7 because that puts me at 15, which is a number that the opponent would be happy to put me at. So maybe I want the opponent to only deal 4 to me, and then the next turn he might be forced with a difficult decision.
Strifecrow has a chance, a 50-50 chance to throw out a Doom Guard here if he goes for Void Terror on the Void Caller. And let's see if he gets it. Ooh, not quite.
Too bad. That was a very daring play, I'm gonna say.
Well, you look at it, if he'd gotten the Doom Guard out, all of a sudden you have a 4-4, a 6-4, and a 5-7 on the board on turn 5. That's a really scary board to deal with. All of a sudden, Chuck is at 18 health. Strifecrow's looking at a power overwhelming top deck next turn to win the game. So,
Yeah, very true. Chalky feeling the pressure, goes with the Sludge Belcher. Strifecrow unfortunately finds the second Doom Guard. This is going to be the tricky part now for Strifecrow. I don't think he can afford to discard Dr. Boom, but yet he can't really afford to do nothing. He can also think about silencing it, but then he's going to be pushing for... He's only going to be setting his opponent down to 7, which is pretty rough. He didn't draw anything to play. So looks like Strifecrow is just going to take a weak turn.
playing nothing. Just a tap and then nothing turn. So that gives Chalky a big indication that Strifecrow's hand is filled with lots of big threats. Oh, it does pick up a Molten Giant, so that could be helpful down the road. He's got both Subfree Protectors in his hand already. So if Strifecrow decides to push damage, then Chalky has a way to fight back.
Yep, Chalky actually in a bit of an awkward spot as well. I mean, easy Hellfire this turn. Oh, the other... Okay, never mind. Chalky's in a great spot. The reason why it was a little bit awkward would just be... No, actually no reason at all. That was a really easy turn.
Yeah.
And oh man, Chalky's gonna have another big turn.
He could tap, triple giant Sun Fury.
Right, but we got the boom in our sights even more than that. Oh, no. Okay.
I don't think you can pass up the triple giant Sun Fury.
I think you can if it involves killing a 7/7. I'm actually very surprised by that play.
I guess one of these giants is going to take out the 7/7 anyway. But I guess so. Having a BGH take out a 7/7 is better than a 8/8 taking out a 7/7.
Right, a BGH is basically like a 10/9 right now, since you're killing a 7/7 and, sorry, an 11/9, and a giant is just an 8/8. Plus, you don't really guarantee, you're not going to be able to guarantee getting a Dr. Boom in the future. But he does it. I think this is one of the few ways that Chalky might have lost if Strifecrow had something like Double Owl. Not sure if he's running that, but... And probably not, but it just seemed like a risk. Either way, though, it looks like this does lock things in.
Ooh, one to face. This is a... What do you do with Strifecrow here? Just play out as big as creatures as you can, aim getting boss low at them? I suppose so. It seems
That
scary.
shows a bit of heart. Okay. Yeah, that was Chalky's huge turn. The turn where you get to play 24/24 of minions on a turn. So, of course, that's big.
And now he can just sort of ignore things, start pushing face, and he's going to put Strifecrow at 5 health. So I think, like you said, that should lock things up. He can owl the Sylvanas and kill the the Molten Giant, but he's still looking. Yeah, there's just no way he can clear everything. He might be able to Defender of Argus and survive. He can Defender of Argus, Doomguard. Then he's not owling. I don't know if there's a way that he can survive the next turn.
Yep, and this is a really big victory for Chalky. Even if Strifecrow finds a way to live, that seems to just be delaying the inevitable. Chalky manages to get through with one of what I would consider to be his most vulnerable deck against Strifecrow's lineup. So that's not just a win, but that's a really important win since it was, again, the most difficult deck to get through in the Conquest format.
Yeah, for sure. So Chaki's definitely going to be happy about that one. Still has Hunter, Mage, and Warrior remaining. And we'll see what Stripe is going to throw out next. It's tough in best of sevens to try and find out like what matchups you're going to want to line up into because there's so many decks that you have to worry about. But like you said, Chaki finding a win with his most vulnerable deck in the first game is going to be great. And wow, Chalky looks like he is going to get a pretty, well, a lot of people consider it to be a good matchup, but we looked at the stats the other day, and Face Hunter actually does pretty well against Patron Warrior.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise. We've actually seen Face Hunter kill Patron Warrior a few times already, and it just turns out that they bring just enough burn where the Patron Warrior needs exactly an Armor Smith and a Shield Block, usually, to win. In this case, Chalky has one of the best possible hands. He has the Armor Smith, the Unstable Ghoul, even the Inner Rage to do an early 1-for-1. And all he really needs is going to be just a little bit more. He's got a lot of survival. He just needs the other cards.
Yeah. So Strifecrow finds the curve, and I'm actually a little surprised that he didn't keep the Abusive Sergeant. It ruins his curve, but at the same time, having Abusive Sergeant, especially with a turn 1 Leper Gnome, makes it so that you can answer an Armor Smith if it's thrown out on turn 2.
Right. I remember yesterday, there were a lot of games where Coin Armor Smith wasn't done out of fear of the Leper Gnome Abusive. And for so many games, like we saw the Patron Warrior doing Coin Fiery War Axe instead. Here, Chalky can't do that, so he's actually got a lot of choices. He can do Armor Smith, he can do Ghoul, and then he can or can't do Inner Rage. With 2 Inner Rage, it feels like an Inner Rage is a natural play here.
Super defensive line from Chalky. And Chalky knows that this is a super aggressive hunter from Strifecrow. He knows that this is the pretty much all-in face, and if anybody knows how to beat this deck, it is going to be Chalky. Chalky was the first player to actually put Worgen Infiltrator in Hunters, in an aggressive Hunter deck, so he definitely knows the weaknesses, and if anybody were to win this matchup convincingly, I would say Chalky is the one who has the knowledge and the tools to do so the best.
Makes sense. To defeat the aggressive deck, you must become the aggressive deck.
Indeed.
It might... Okay, that Acolyte of Pain is a really good pickup for Chalky. I was going to say it might look good for Chalky behind, like, 5 of the most defensive early game cards, but Chalky could actually run out of steam. But with that Acolyte of Pain, he'll be able to keep it going.
Yeah.
Even better, that Armor Smith will gain at least 3 armor and be able to take out that Mad Scientist.
This is tough, though. This is one of those situations where Strifecrow found himself in yesterday where he got a lot of value off of his Eaglehorn bow. And is this explosive? Yeah. Wow. So he not only deals with the Mad Scientist, but he is going to push through to gain armor, pretty much negating the damage from the explosive trap, but also drawing a card. So very well navigated. He will give Strifecrow an extra charge of the bow, but not really too worried about that, as he really just got a lot of value out of the cards that he has on his board.
Yep, that was some really good timing and positioning of the killing order and the way to attack. Knowledge of the opponent's traps is a really big deal too. If you know Strifecrow has exactly 2 explosive traps, then that's a great
Which,
play and the absolute best play.
which I think he does know
Yeah, I mean, even if you
because
don't know, you do have a pretty good guess.
yeah. All right, this play would get punished by Ironbeak Owl, but there was so many targets for Ironbeak Owl earlier on in the game that Chalky should be pretty confident that he doesn't have one. And we could see Stripecrow does not have one. Picks up Arcane Golem, but it's going to be rough. There's no way for him to sort of preserve these creatures he has on the board. His Morgan Infiltrator is going to die for free. But Strifecrow is pushing that damage.
Yeah, it looks like a tough spot for Strifecrow because his opponent is at 20 plus health and the opponent is entering turn 6. But Strifecrow actually has a pretty good board with 7 attack. 7 attack, all you need to do is attack basically twice and win. So Chalky, he has almost 3 kind of slow slash dead cards. He might consider Commander frothing into the Knife Juggler. It's actually better than Slam because you actually get some board presence, and he's going to do that. He does have the shield block to catch up at the end, so it's a little bit astounding to have seen Chalky's plays and be like, oh, it's not decided yet, in huge favor of Chalky. Face Hunter finds a way.
Yeah, but Strifecrow is going to be out of cards after this turn. Most likely. I'd imagine him to just Leper Gnome and Abusive Sergeant and then go for it. He's not too worried about this Frothing Berserker doing much more. Just because if he puts pressure, he knows that the Frothing Berserker is going to have to trade in, and he knows that a Whirlwind effect would kill off the Frothing Berserker, so he's not really going to be threatened by it too much as far as, like, Chalky applying pressure. So it is definitely worth some thought. But at this point, Strifecrow is at the stage where he just needs to go aggressive and hope he draws into enough burn to end the game, because it's looking very rough for him at the moment.
That's right. There's some consideration to killing the Warsong Commander also, just because if he plays both of those minions and the opponent has Grim Patron, which in this case Chalky does, that's a board clear. But I do think you still have to go for the face just because you would waste 6 damage on a 3 health minion, and that's not the way to play.
Yeah, but he is going to get punished, and Chalky was the person who told me this, is once a face hunter or a hunter in general is out of cards, it becomes a science. You know their deck, you can calculate exactly the maximum amount of damage each turn that you need to play around. And so at this stage, Chalky is just in a pretty good spot. He does need to fit in armor ups. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws in... yeah, he's going to have to throw in one of these creatures here instead of slamming off this, because he needs to get those armor ups in every turn to play around the possibility of, like, Quick Shot into Unleash. Quick Shot into Unleash would be 8, 10. So if he had slammed it, he would have died to that exact combo, which, like I said, comes down to a science. Still sets up lethal for the next turn. And
Yeah, I like sending in the Warsong over the Patron. Represents more power. And he takes it.
Yeah,
I was also going to
Chalky.
say one of the best cards that Chalky could have at that point is Shield Block, so that's a really good end game card to hold against Face Hunter. Just after you've depleted everything, you do it. So Chalky has so far had the fortune of getting 2 of his best matchups out of the way, and that is the Patron out of the way. Yeah,
Yeah, there we go. The check mark was jumping around a little bit, but it's landed on the correct target. So now Chalky has Hunter and what I believe to be Freeze Mage remaining. Strifecrow still yet to find a win. We saw sort of this exact situation play out in the last matchup. Dart took a 2-0 victory, ended up taking the whole series 4-2 at the end. But we'll see how this one's going to play out. Chalky is going to throw out that Freeze Mage, and Strifecrow is going to throw out the Hunter once again.
yeah, okay. Chalky managed to line up another good matchup. Traditionally, this type of Freeze Mage is really good against Face Hunter. It's all about getting that ice barrier. I remember Firebat basically saying you get 2 ice barriers and you win the game.
Yeah, Jackie definitely going to be looking for those. Both players doing the old mulligan standoff.
So I imagine from Chalky's side, you keep just the Frostbolt, and from Strifecrow's side, Abusive and Mad Scientist, perhaps? Oh yeah, and
Jackie's
Doomsayer is probably worth keeping. Yeah.
Jackie's a big fan of just throwing out the Doomsayer on turn 2 against aggressive decks.
Yeah, that's a good call.
It's a great way to just stop the pressure, um, and it ruins like a turn 3 animal companion unless you know for sure that you can kill it off. So it basically just buys you an extra turn in a situation where you otherwise not be guaranteed an extra turn. Yep, there it is.
In all its world-ending glory.
It is going to meet a very early demise, but this would have otherwise been a turn where Chalky would have taken probably quite a bit of damage. I mean, he's still going to take a lot of damage, but at least he knows that there is an Ironbeak Owl out of the way. And Chalky's starting to take a little bit of a beating here. It could be rough. He does have some ways to fight back on the board. Like next turn, he could Loot Hoarder ping or Frostbolt ping, and he lines up into some AoE later on in the game, but that is a lot of damage from Strifecrow. I don't know if Chalky's going to be able to have enough time to draw into Ice Barriers or Mad Scientists and have them stick long enough for him to survive in this match.
Right. Strifecrow is doing what Strifecrow is doing right now, and you might be able to tell if you actually just look at his face, and he's counting up lethal already. That's because he wants to decide whether or not on this turn to play Eaglehorn Bow or to even just Hero Power. And that's pretty key to do, because if you count up lethal and then that means you really want to avoid playing Arcane Golem early. So looks like Strifecrow has already decided his plan for about the next 6 turns. It's probably going to be Eaglehorn Bow, I'm gonna guess, and then the Hero Power, and then you do an Arcane Golem Hero Power, and then an Arcane Golem Hero Power.
Yeah, even just from hand, he has enough. If none of his creatures had survived, he would have enough, because basically what he would do, he would Hero Power, then this turn he would Eaglehorn Hero Power, and then he'd have 10 damage over the next 2 turns, and then 8 damage on the final turn, which would be exactly 18. But this turn he decides he's probably not going to get much more than 2 Hounds out of Unleash, and cards like Ice Barrier or... yeah, mostly just Ice Barrier would put a wrench in his plans.
Chalky feeling the pressure. Strifecrow has 6, 6, and 5 the next turn, so it's currently 5 over, even if you don't count any of the minions on the board. And the dog is going to get in for, looks like, at least 1.
Wow, so the secret actually is Freezing Trap from Strifecrow. So that play that Chalky made earlier in the Patron matchup could have backfired. Maybe he didn't. I'm not sure if we saw the Freezing Trap in the matches that Strifecrow played yesterday, but now we know he does run Freezing plus Explosive. Definitely respecting the damage here.
Yep.
Can Chalky turn this around? He's going to need Ice Barriers. Potentially he's going to need Alexstrasza, Ice Block. He just needs secrets. Right now his hand is just bad. He's got all of his AoE, which isn't really effective. He's got his big creatures in the deck, which aren't really effective either.
Yeah, it's also important to realize that Strifecrow is both following his plan and also adapting it. Like last turn, he did play the dogs, the Unleash the Hounds, because it was the best opportunity to do so. But this turn, because he sees the eventual lethal. He's chosen to use the hero power over the scientist, and I'm sure Strefko is actually a little bit surprised to find that he won this turn. He was ready to play another 2 turns, though.
Yeah, Strife goes. He's thinking, "What the heck was that?" Chaka didn't play anything. But yeah, I guess that's sort of the nature of Freeze Mage. It does have games where the draws are inconsistent. Ice Barrier is definitely the card that you need in that matchup. And Chucky just didn't find it. Didn't find any secrets. Didn't find any secrets or mad scientists.
Yeah, I mean, he
Which is
managed to find the flame strikes. That's a little too slow against Place Hunter, though.
yeah. So
Blizzard 2 flame strike hand by Chalky. That was unfortunate.
mhm.
So Strifecrow manages to take one with an unfavored matchup, but given Chalky's bloated hand, that was no wonder. And Strifecrow did plan to like. That was not just taken; it was decisively taken. Since Strifecrow could have dealt another about 15 damage, probably.
Yeah. So we're going to move into game number 4 here. Chalky is going to throw out the Freeze Mage once again. Strefko is going to throw out the Demon Zoo this time around. There's the Ice Barrier.
Strifecrow just continues to get the worst of the matchups. I think every single matchup that has been queued so far has been in Chalky's favor.
Well, you look at Chalky's lineup, it is pretty good against Strifegrow's lineup. Handlock was the weaker deck for Chalky, but he managed to get that into a favorable matchup. Freeze Mage beats a lot of Strifecrow's decks. Freeze Mage is very good against Strifecrow's lineup.
That's
He's got
true. Even
Paladin
against
also.
Paladin,
Yeah.
that's probably one of the best matchups for a Freeze Mage. So, really only the Druid from Strifecrow? Strifecrow was going Druid, right?
No. Mage.
Mage, ah, yes. So, only the Mage from. Okay. And the Mage is still
We
not
don't.
sure
Yeah, we
about.
don't know. So it could be a favorable matchup, may not be a favorable matchup. We'll have to see. I think that it would be a favorable matchup against Mech Mage, especially Fell Reaver Mech Mage. Because
Yeah, I
they
agree with
play
that.
Fell Reaver, all of a sudden they have no deck against Freeze Mage, potentially.
Yeah, this time, Strifecrow starting off really well with the double 1 drop into the aggressive 2 drop.
Yeah. Chalky, a lot better of a starting hand than he had in the last game. This is the hand that he would have wanted to have against Strifecrow's Hunter with both Mad Scientist and Ice Barrier. And he thinks for a second whether or not Mad Scientist is worth playing. Finding a way to guarantee that he gets... well, I guess it wouldn't be a guarantee. No, this is right. Because he wants to get Ice Barrier from Mad Scientist and play Ice Barrier from hand as well, because both Ice Barriers are really important against more aggressive decks. And we'll see if he manages to do that.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that's actually a bit interesting what Chalky just did. Frostbolt could have hit the. Never mind. It's perfectly same. Good play, Chalky.
Yeah. And let's see, did he get the Ice Block or the Ice Barrier? He got Ice Block, okay. So, not the one he was hoping for, but he went about it in a way to give himself the highest chance to do so, with Ice Barrier being in his opening hand. And Chalky, now all of a sudden, he needs some Cycle. And some AoE. Cycle and AoE.
Yep, means a bit of everything, which is actually going to be pretty troublesome for Chalky. Strifecrow has that big card, the Loatheb, and he's going to be very happy to play it the next turn because it blocks out Blizzard, oh boy, which he just drew, and it's actually pretty good because there's a bunch of stuff on Strifecrow's board to protect. Chalky in a rough spot here. I guess you would have to play the Ice Bear since none of those are worth fireballing.
Yeah.
That Loatheb is going to be huge. It
Brutal.
blocks. It guarantees an extra 8, and then an extra 5 from the Loatheb.
And Owl is another great draw, because Stripecrow can feel a little bit better about playing the Loatheb early. because he has an owl for a Doomsayer, or even to like silence one of his own targets to push in for lethal. And Ice Barrier is going to be procced, but he's going to be able to push through all of the damage of the Ice Barrier, all the armor of the Ice Barrier this turn. There's a Doomsayer. It'd basically just be a 7 health heal at this point.
It's playing nothing.
Yeah.
And the 7 health is valuable because it looks like if he weren't to gain the 7 health, then he wouldn't ever find a time to play it. Chalky on the ropes.
Alright, so Strife Girl can tap, and he can either choose to Abusive Sergeant the Loatheb into the Doomsayer, or silence it and save the owl for the second one, but he is going to opt to push damage this turn. He can play a Nerubian Egg to protect himself against AoE, like Blizzard or Flame Strike. Because now all of a sudden, if Chalky uses Blizzard, Strife Crow is going to be left with 2 1/1s that can attack, and a 4/4 that can also attack. A 5/3 that can attack, but still threatening the board.
Yeah, and it's probably instructive to just say that Strife Crow doesn't always do the silence here, and sometimes you would definitely consider abusive. It depends on the health points of the mage, and it also depends quite strongly on the fact that he held Dr. Boom and that he had 2 death rattle effects, because in some cases it would be better to hold the owl just in case you get both frozen and doomsayered.
Yeah, in which case you wouldn't have a way to deal with it if you had used your owl earlier. Mal'Ganis is a tough card for freeze mages to deal with, even if it gets to the point where the freeze mage is trying to set up for a kill, which it just doesn't look like Chalky's ever going to get to that point. He's starting to stabilize slightly, but not really, because he's still staring at a scary board that he's not going to be able to deal with anytime soon.
Yep. All Strife Crow has to think about here is whether or not to clear the anti-kill bot. Probably would have been with the Loatheb. Chooses not to. And the no clear is going to hurt a tiny bit against freeze, but it looks like Strife Crow has done the calculation to see that he would be able to kill him even through Flame Strike or Blizzard, partly through the Abusive Sergeant, partly through the Boom bots. And pushing the damage was necessary to do that.
So Chalky is looking at an Alexstrasza next turn to possibly bring himself back up if he needs to. Also, he plays the Mad Scientist before he Blizzards to maybe get a Ice Barrier.
One short, Strife Crow. One short. And that's a big deal that he's 1 short, because now instead of doing that defensive Alexstrasza, which probably was never going to happen because there's so much power on Strife Crow's board, he's going to do the offensive Alexstrasza, and then Chalky, all he needs is to get a Frostbolt to win, or a Fireball. Or a Pyroblast.
But at this point, he doesn't really have a choice. I suppose there still would have been a chance for Chalky to get an Ice Block off the Mad Scientist, even if Strife Crow was able to pop the block this turn. Would have been a 50-50 for that. But it looks like Chalky's line is... the only way he is going to win this is by going for the offensive Alexstrasza. But it is going to be probably for naught, just because Mal'Ganis will come out the next turn.
Oh yes, Mal'Ganis, the big swing. Oh. There's... No, there's no way to actually... I was thinking for a moment, okay, if you break the Creeper, then Strupure can't play Mal'Ganis, but he would be able to find some way to trade into your stuff.
This is a really tough call, but I think Chalky is going to realize that his only way to win is to try and go all in here.
Yeah, the Frost Nova did open some possibilities, but it's just delaying the decision one turn to no real benefit. Maybe if you had something to play with it, like Arcane Intellect, you would go with the Frost Nova play, or maybe Doomsday, but not in this case.
Yeah, Chalky's going to be very disappointed to see a Mal'Ganis come out on the board here because that's pretty much going to lock the game up. Um, there is still a chance because Chalky does have Frost Nova. So he could Frost Nova, Fireball, and Ping the Mal'Ganis because Alexstrasza will most likely die this turn. And then hope that he draws into enough damage, but I mean, after using Fireball, will he have enough?
Oh, it would have to be exactly Pyroblast, but it's a chance.
Would Pyroblast even be enough?
Yeah, because the 2 Ice Lances will deal 4.
That's true. He'd have to make that call and do it this turn. No, he wouldn't have enough mana to Frost Nova, Fireball, and Ping.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Plus double Ice Lance. And Frost Bolt, Ice Lance would only be 11, so even with that and a Ping, it wouldn't be enough. He'd be 1 off.
Okay, Loot Hoarder, that might do it. That's interesting to say, but because it's frozen, everything, the Loot Hoarder is 2 damage, and that would be 4. No, 4, 6. No, that's the same problem. You can't play all of them. So close, Jockey. I guess you have to Frost Nova, Loot Hoarder, Fire Blast. Oh yeah, that would be the way. So you Frost Nova, you Loot Hoarder, and then you Fire Blast Mal'Ganis, and then you hope to draw exactly Frostbolt.
Frostbolt.
And that's one possible line that would work.
Oh.
Yeah, this is 8 damage. That's pretty clean as well.
Now he can play Loot Hoarder, Ping Face.
Oh, and now Pyroblast or Fireball work, which is a much better chance.
What about Frostbolt? Or Frostbolt?
6, yeah, that works too.
Well,
The
the Voidwalker
is
going to make it so only
spoils
Fireball. Wow. How many cards does Chalky have left? A lot. 14.
14. If it weren't for the Voidwalker, he would have like a 3 out of 14 chance of winning. But the Voidwalker will push it down to a 1 out of 14.
Which is a pretty big difference in percentages. Well, actually,
though
it'll be
it should
2.
be mentioned, there's still like Freeze, which could buy him another turn, or Ice Block, which could buy him another turn. And there's Arcane Intellects in it, so Chalky's chances of winning this game, even though it looks extremely grim, is actually, it's a lot higher than people would say it is.
He actually has Loot Hoarder as well that he can throw in
That's right.
to get another draw. So at the very least, a 2 in 14 chance just to draw into a natural Fireball here.
And when he doesn't draw Fireball, for now, any Freeze, Ice Block, they'll prolong the game. That one doesn't actually quite do it because of the egg.
So I think he has to Acolyte of Pain and ping it and draw into Ice Block. And that's
Or
it.
Nova if he has another one.
I don't think he has another one. But I'm not sure. We'll see what it is. The game comes down to this. Frostbolt's not going to do it. And Chalky goes ahead and concedes. A really close game. Even though it didn't look like it for a long time, Chalky did still have some chances. And if you look at that, all of a sudden if he didn't have Voidwalker, if He drew the Frostbolt one turn earlier and didn't have Woodwalker. If Mal'Ganis wasn't in there, so many things could have gone differently that Chalky would have won. One card off multiple times from being able to just close out the game. And Strifeco is going to tie up the series 2-2. And now we're going to move to the point of the game where each player has two decks. We can look at the matchups pretty nicely now. Paladin Mage for Strifeco, Hunter Mage for Chalky.
Well, the easy one to analyze is the Paladin. Paladin's strong against Hunter, weak against Freeze Mage. And then the Mage is actually unknown from Strifecrow. We're still not going to see it, so Strifecrow is going to save that Mage for last.
And it's going to come... This match is going to be Face Hunter versus Mid-Range Hunter. Chalky was probably hoping to queue into Mage.
Yeah, Paladin, rather.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Paladin. Paladin versus... Either matchup is pretty weak for Chalky. Yeah. Either matchup
This is a pretty tough hand from Strifecrow. Sometimes you feel, this Knife Juggler is just a 3-2, but you probably still keep it. Have to make a decision on the Consecration. He knows this one's a little bit more mid-rangey from Chalky, so the Consecration might not be as useful, and the Shredder might be a bit too slow. I'm interested in seeing how Strifecrow mulligans it. From Chalky's side, he's got a Haunted Creeper and an Animal Companion, and that's pretty good. He might go for Animal Companion, see how optimistic he is.
Mm-hmm.
Goes with the natural Haunted Creeper, Animal Companion. Strifecrow keeps only Knife Juggler, gets a Zombie Chow. Good stuff.
Yeah, really nice curve here. And anti-Killbot. Not as strong in the mid-range Hunter matchup, but definitely still against any Hunter. You're happy to see the anti-Killbot at some point in the game. Maybe a little bit early to draw it, but still a nice pickup.
Yep, Chalky goes for the tempo play of the Creeper. Pretty much committing himself to playing... Well, I was going to say the Freezing Trap, but you can definitely play the Quick Shot, and that's actually more likely. And then just going with a turn 3 Animal Companion.
Mm-hmm.
Strifecrow land, he drew the Owl, and actually that was a worthwhile consideration for a moment. Makes the decision that his guys aren't going to be contested by just that Creeper. Tough call to make.
So Chalky's got a decision here. Quick Shot the Knife Juggler. He could Freezing Trap, but it doesn't seem as strong. And maybe he's thinking about even quick-shotting the Zombie Chow because it represents more health. It might be easier for him to deal with Knife Juggler.
An interesting thought. Turn.
Yeah, but Knife Juggler does pose a big threat, especially with Muster for Battle coming up. You can't really take that risk because Zombie Chow goes in. Well, he could have thrown the Knife Juggler into the Haunted Creeper and almost guaranteed a clear here. Owl off the top, though. What a draw.
Oh, he held it from last turn. He drew equality. But yeah, it was a tough decision on whether or not to Owl or do Knife Juggler last turn. And Strifecrow actually made a pretty bold play.
The heck?
Things continue to go well for Strifecrow. Keeps the initiative. Very nice to start off with a Shredder against an empty board.
Yeah, this is one of those reasons why Paladin is considered strong, because they do have a good opportunity to curve out well. Cards like Shield and Minibot allow them to fight for board really strong early on, and Strifecrow did it even without Muster for Battle this time around, so it's looking pretty good for him. Freezing Trap is a bit problematic, especially with the Paladin Shredder, but Strifecrow's not too worried about it at this stage.
Yeah,
he's only taking 1 point of damage.
He's just going to keep making guys and have the guys tank those Freezing Traps.
Ideally.
Chalky really hoping for a Knife Juggler here.
Oh.
Instead gets a dud.
Probably one of the worst draws that he could have gotten there. Maybe even the worst. He still can go for a Unleash the Hounds play. and still force Strife into a position where uh, he has to go into that freezing trap with the Paladin Shredder.
Yeah, that makes sense. Probably sending the web spinner in first into the 3-2 if he's going to carry out that play, just to see if he's got a reasonable beast outcome. Oh, goes there. Means he's going to play
Lotham.
Lotham.
Yeah. I guess it
That
does put
that's
more
actually
power on
makes
the board.
sense. Yeah, he doesn't. Striker doesn't have anything to immediately contest that.
Strife Grow, he either just has to hero power this turn, or play a not very valuable. Oh, I could just replay the Knife Juggler.
Right, that's a good timing to play it, especially since he doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
Really hopes to hit the knife here, and if he doesn't hit, I think he trades anyways and goes for a 50-50 to hit.
Nope. Just decides to go face. Still no Knife Juggler. But he can double unleash if he wants to. I think second
That would be
unleash.
pretty hopeful. I mean, it is a lot of guys, that's for sure. Okay, this one gets the freezing trap lined up against the Paladin. It's pretty good.
That Paladin Shredder. He really wants to freeze that Paladin Shredder. Trying so hard to make sure that goes back in the hand. And there's one of Strife Crow's tech choices that we saw earlier, the Sunwalker in his Paladin deck. Which is super
It's a
interesting.
fun play from Strife Crow. I love playing Healbot against what you perceive to be freezing trap. Basically gives the Healbot taunt.
Yeah. Which he does make the read correctly, and Chalky finds a bow, which is pretty decent here, because now he's going to be able to have an easy pickup on this anti-heal bot, plus he's going to threaten to get more charges with this bow. And once
Yeah,
again,
that turn went really well for Chalky. He managed to develop a bow and get 2 extra 1/1s while dealing with whatever Strife Crow played. So Chalky's board just developed, whereas Strife Crow stayed the same. Strife Crow probably going to just do Sunlocker Guy here if he continues his curve. No other play. Well, he has this equality consecration. He just doesn't want to deal with this stuff. Makes sense because the Sunwalker actually would just get hit by the dog, and then the Lotheb finishes it. So that wouldn't be a very efficient play.
yeah, Chalky really needs to find a big creature here, and Paladin or Sludge Belcher is decent, but Chalky's in the situation now where his freezing trap is going to be procced by a 1/1 Silverhand recruit, which is definitely not the situation that you want to be in. And so he's just going to go ahead and use his bow, realizing that he needs that Paladin Shredder to get off the board from this freezing trap, and forgoes the possibility of him getting a second bow charge, an extra bow charge, for just trying to gain a foothold on this board.
Yeah, that guy did a lot of work. He basically did what's the equivalent of taking 6 damage because the bow would have gained charge.
Valiant effort from that Silverhand recruit.
Here, though, because Strife Crow is at such a high life total, we're going to see Strife Crow start to use his hero power to just put on so much pressure over time. And he has that Quartermaster, of course. Both of the hounds have been unleashed from Chalky, so at this point, Strife Crow can do whatever he wants in terms of filling up the board with guys. Looks like he's managed to weather the storm, and things are going to settle down pretty well for him.
Yeah, and Chalky's basically going to use all of his resources here just to try and, once again, get a decent position on the board. But the Sunwalker is just going to pose so much of a problem, because now he's used Owl, he's used Kill Command. He just doesn't have a good way to get through this. Even a Highmane off the top is would still be a pretty dire situation for Chalky moving forward.
I mean, when I look at this, I would say if Chalky were to get a high main, I think the favorite would go to Chalky. Right now, what's just so poor about Chalky's position is that he does have to rely on the top deck, and his fate is kind of tied pretty strongly to it. If he whiffs, he's definitely going to lose, though, pretty much. This is medium.
If you're Chalky, do you have to start going all in and start smacking
3,
the
5,
face?
6, 7, 8. Put him to 11. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the one thing that you might compromise on is killing a guy, just because you think there's going to be a little more time. But Chalky makes the call that times are desperate.
Yep. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and Chalky does have some outs left in his deck, but the Sunwalker is going to throw a huge wrench in his plans. He's going to need Second Owl plus other stuff. And the thing to note is, Chalky is also starting to get pretty low on health, and the True Silver Champion is basically going to lock up the game, because not only is going to do 8 damage, it's also going to heal for 4 over the next couple turns, so I don't think there's anything that Chalky can draw that's going to save him.
Rexar has been brought to justice. And Strifecrow manages to take the 3 games consecutively after being down 0-2.
Alright, so Strifecrow is on match point here. It's all going to come down to the Mage, which we have not seen yet. And Chalky still has Freeze Mage plus mid-range Hunter remaining for him to win if he wants to take the series. And Dart is waiting for whoever wins this matchup in the final round of Feature Tournament number 4. So, still ways to go for these players if they want to make it to that Grand Finals at PAX. They have to win this matchup, plus they have to face off against Dart in the finals. I'm really curious to see what Mage deck this is going to be from Strifecrow.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing which one it could be either. Also, because it could be about 4 different decks. Strifecrow has brought a lot. Okay, mech. And what a mech start that is.
Cogmaster is always what you want to see. It's not the perfect start, but definitely very strong.
Top tier, if not the perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the perfect, you're right. You can get some really, really disgusting starts, but that's just about as good as they come.
Cogmaster, if there was a Mech Warper in there, it'd be a bit better.
It's true. The interesting thing to look at is whether or not Strifecrow wants to try to push for something just a little bit better. It's looking like it would be Cogmaster into Coin Tank into Technician. And Strifecrow could also consider Cogmaster Clockwork Gnome on turn 1, but then have no turn 2. So probably the thought would be whether or not he feels comfortable enough that a mech will survive to play Technician on 3. And he is going to toss the Technician, not feeling it. Gets the chance of drawing a 2, and he does draw one.
Unstable Portal. I feel like that's an interesting Mech Mage card. A lot of
man, he
times...
drew a second Cogmaster. Okay, well, looks like Cogmaster, Coin Cogmaster is a pretty strong play. It does make his turn 2 play somewhat weaker. He could also consider just doing 1 Cogmaster now and then the next turn Cogmaster Gnome. But it's really good to get like 2 3/2s out. He's going to split the difference. All right.
Chalky gives a little bit of a chuckle, knowing that it's going to be really tough for him to come back with a start like Cogmaster, Clockwork Gnome, Mana Worm, Cogmaster. Holy moly.
Oh boy.
That's
an
most of the
easy
1-drops
play,
of the
I'd say.
deck.
Ooh, what a start from Strifecrow.
Chalky's probably going to look pretty disappointed after this one, as he might be
Blink,
staring at the beginning
sigh,
of the end.
slump.
Yeah, sigh, eye roll, sigh, slump. That's usually how it goes when you see an opening like this. He does have ways to fight back, but it's going to be really
Oh,
tough. And
gonna cross his fingers. No mech, no mech. Only two cards left. He's gotta run out sometime. But alas.
Strepko does have the perfect turn 3 mech with the spider tank, and going to push even more damage. Put Chucky at 18 health, and he's going to have to take some damage to clear this board. If he picks up... I think Animal Companion might be a little bit too risky. Actually, if he Animal Companions, if he gets Leok or Huffer, he's okay.
Seems like it might be better just to get all the mana. To use all the mana rather.
Yeah.
On the shredder. There was an interesting line there where he could have used the bow and one of the guys to kill off the spider tank if he was hopeful that there would be no mech. And in fact, there is no mech left, but with like that many cards left, I guess he wasn't willing to take the risk. Ooh, okay, that's a
Shield
pretty
Maiden.
reasonable one.
Wow.
Wow, that one's that one's
Oh
fun
my
too.
goodness. All of a sudden, Strife Crow has turned from a mech mage into a control warrior with those pickups. And Chucky does have a weapon, but he's going to be met with most likely a Shield Maiden on this turn, which is going to be annoying for him to get there. He does have Animal Companion plus Kill Command.
Oh man. All right. Well, Shield Maiden turns out to be surprisingly good because what Strifecrow wanted is basically to last until turn 9. Strifecrow has a hard win at turn 9 since the Hunter has no heal, and Strifecrow has 2 fireballs, though the fireball is going to cost 12 mana to play.
Yeah. This is... I want to say it's going to be close. Strife Crosser survived for 3 more turns.
Yeah, this is actually going to be close. Though Strifecrow can see the win on turn 9, it requires specifically turn 6 or 7 fireball into turn 8, basically do nothing, and then turn 9 win the game. So he does the math, and he sees that right now, if he trades off the Misha, that's 6. And then, like, basically the minimum damage Strifecrow would take is 18. Sorry, it's 22, because the 2 guys would attack, and then the hero power is 8, and then 8 again.
Wow. Well, that sort of ruins his turn 9 kill.
Right. The turn 9 guarantee was too slow, so he's going to go for this also slow play, but looks like the best of his options.
Yeah. All right. Juggle is good. Goes to the face, which is what Shocky needs. Starting to pile on the pressure. And we're starting to get into the danger territory for Strifecrow, as he's looking at a pretty scary board. Piloted Shredder Tinkertown Technician does give him a spell. So he is now back on that turn 9 clock, but can he survive long enough to do that? He needs to Pilot Shredder.
Explosive trap pretty much, but unfortunately it's not.
Needs to Powder Shredder Tinkertown this turn, Archmage plus Spell next turn, and then kill him on turn 9.
But that schedule's unfortunately 1 turn too long. That Archmage Antonitis is basically a dead card now.
And Lotheb. So he won't be able to play Archmage plus a spell next turn. Lotheb is almost for sure going to come down. I don't think that, unless Chucky picks up a high main, he might get sort of baited into the high main play, which wouldn't even be baited, it would just be a strong play. Maybe Chucky will feel like his only way to win it, to close it out, would be a Lotheb, but I'd imagine that no matter what, it is going to come down. So it just comes down this turn. Wow.
Makes a lot of sense. Strive Crow sees that Archmage Antonidas is a dead card and finds a way to at least get some value out of the 5/7 body.
But this should lock Strife Crow out of the game. It's going to be so much damage. And he does hit the juggles nicely. He's going to put him at 5 health. Ooh, okay. 7 health, but gets the freezing trap down. Oh, it's explosive. I don't think it matters.
Hmm.
Okay. Looks like we're going to a game number 7. It's all going to come down to Mage versus Mage. Freeze Mage versus Mech Mage.
Slight edge to the Freeze Mage, but just a slight one, I'd say.
Very slight. I think Strife Crow does play Fell Reaver. At least in the Mech Mage that I saw him bring, that I saw him play.
I saw we saw Unstable Portals and Mana Worms though, so
he did play those in his Mech Mage that he played Fell Reaver in too. When he was playing it on a stream. So
and there it is.
A dangerous card to play in this matchup. Dangerous, dangerous card.
The way to treat this matchup is generally as if it's Zoo with a lot of burst. It loses the consistency of Zoo, but you make up for it with a lot of burst. And if you somehow draw the aggressive elements, then you're just strictly better Zoo. If not, then you're like worse Zoo with not a way to smooth things out.
But more burn. Wow, these are pretty interesting. Both of these players, it's going to come down to their designated 4th deck. Keep in mind, the rest of the tournament's been best of 5, so these players at the beginning, when they submitted their deck lineups, they were told to submit a 4th deck for if they made it to the semifinals. When it became best of 7, that's their would be their 4th deck. So both players deciding on Mage, but going with different routes for their Mage. Chalky with the Freeze Mage, Strive Crow with the Mech Mage. Their tournament life is going to be on the line with these decks. And right now, I'm liking Strive Crow's opening hand. He does find Cogmaster again.
That's right. And on the other hand, Chalky was a bit disappointed by his hand. That just improved a bit, though. So he only had the Frostbolt initially as a playable card, but now he has the excellent Mad Scientist.
Yeah, that's actually might be a game saver, to be honest. If he picked up a dud there, he might have taken a lot of pressure early on. He would have taken a lot of pressure early on.
Yep. Strife Crow picks up the Annoyatron, has to give some thought on whether or not to trade into the Mad Scientist, presumably, and it looks like it's a yes, because otherwise the Annoyatron would die to a Fire Blast.
Mm-hmm. Do you trade? You take a lot of power off the board. You don't
Plus,
push
you
3 damage.
get to save the mech to play the Technician. A lot of thought. Goes with no. I'm surprised. That opens up the Fire Blast and hit play.
Mm-hmm.
If Chalky is fooled, then he might use a Frostbolt on the 3/2, but it seems to me like getting rid of the mech is a good play.
Yeah.
This has left Strife Crow with not a great turn 3. I suppose he looked at the future and saw he was guaranteed to get this damage in, and in the case where the Mad Scientist goes in, he can Fire Blast for the finish. It does slow down his timetable a bit, though, because he was forced to use a Fire Blast.
Yeah. Chalky picked up Ice Barrier with the Mad Scientist. Now, one thing to note, and we touched on it earlier, the difference between the Mech Mage and the Zoo is one big thing is the resilience of the creatures. Where Zoo has tools like Haunted Creeper, they have Egg, they have boards that are more resilient to AoE. Where basically mech mages just have piloted shredder, which is a little bit resilient to AoE. So once we start getting to those later turns, Chalky can definitely start to stabilize a lot better than he would have if he was playing against something like a Zoo, which is probably the deck that's most similar to mech mage and how it operates. So it's Chalky just needs to get to the, sort of that point of stabilization, and you should be okay in the matchup.
Yeah, Stripecrow finding a lot of damage out of that initial Cogmaster has done 9 damage with it so far, and that doesn't look to stop.
Chalky keeps hoping as he kills off these mechs that eventually Strifeco will run out of mechs for this Cogmaster to get buffed with.
No such luck, though.
Yeah.
Wonder if Strifecrow will find the armor plating. Oh, he can actually go Mech Warper Shredder.
Yeah, it looks to be the line, and he can push some more damage here. Probably take the Blood Mage off the board with the Mana Worm, put some pressure on. But Chalky, despite Strifeco having a pretty decent early game, he has really not. He's only managed to take like only a couple effective damage. Ooh, Flame Strike, that's going to be pretty big.
That's right. Once Chalky enters the safe zone of turn 6, he can call down the aerial strikes. First the Blizzard, then the Flame Strike.
Yeah, he's definitely going to think this over to see what is the most optimal way to go about this. Probably Frost Nova, ping off the Piloted Shredder potentially, so that way the Blizzard clears it off. He has to think what could come out of that Piloted Shredder that would punish me. I think he's going to have to try to tank the damage from whatever comes out anyway to set up for a Flame Strike. Would be punished by a Loatheb, but we're not even sure if Strifeco runs a Loatheb in this deck.
Yep. The decision would be whether or not to Fire Blast it. The advantages are you do kill the Shredder. The disadvantages are you do get the whatever comes out of the Shredder gets to attack you once, but with such a high amount of health, I think it makes sense.
Yeah. You can also ping off the Mech Warper to 1T Blizzards.
Yeah, I mean, with that play, then you don't have to commit to Flame Strike. After all, you are killing most of this stuff. That makes a lot of sense.
Do you hold if you're Strifeco? Are you afraid of Blizzard?
Oh, you're terrified of it.
But can you afford to hold back?
It's going to be either a half measure or no measure here. The half measure would be playing the Technician and then playing one of the... then playing the armor plating on something you want to survive. And then the no measure would be just hold back. When you look at Strifecrow's hand and your Strifecrow, though, you think about it and you're like, oh, if I only have this stuff after an area of effect, I lose anyways. So maybe I should just double down.
Yeah. But he is going to go with the armor plating and pass. So no measure. And
this is like the very slight measure.
Yeah. He knows that Mech Warper is going to survive Blizzard, but maybe that's not that big of a deal to him. And now Strifecrow is sort of in the same spot, but he has to think, how afraid am I of Flame Strike?
Well, he certainly has to develop stuff here, because otherwise just Fire Blast punishes too hard.
Yeah.
So he's going to develop a little bit, but up to him on how much he wants to develop. This is looking increasingly grim for Strifecrow. Like, all this area of effect is causing Strifecrow to actually play correctly, and now he's going to develop one more thing. He's thinking, oh, he's so far ahead, and I only have 5 attack worth of stuff. Can I even win the game if I just hold back? Is he going to go all in? No, it takes another half measure.
And Chalky's going to go ahead and Flame Strike. Chalky is on the plan here where he can set up for A lethal turn. Whoa,
Ooh.
Dr. Boom off the top is huge.
Yeah, that looked extremely grim, but then 9 power worth of stuff showed up on the board with 1 card. And Shockey's got a fireball for it.
Yeah.
Slowing down the bleeding a lot, but right now he doesn't have much in the way of finishing the opponent. But
Oh
Strashkro is also
no.
fizzled out.
The reversing switch on the Doomsayer. The ultimate counter to Doomsayer. But like you said, Stripe Crow has fizzled out. He has drawn it to burn. Will Chalky feel comfortable going for the offensive Alex Straza? Not
Oh
yet.
man, that Dr. Boom swung things so much. Goes for it. Strifecrow does have the 6, and he's got the 6 from the fireball, so he's only 7 off. But that Alex Straza is too big a threat. Strifecrow looks like he's going to have to dedicate most of his stuff to killing it.
Yeah.
Or by most of his stuff, I guess I mean a fireball.
2 damage to face from the Boom Bot. Not too impactful, but Chalky is starting to get pretty low here.
This is
And
close. Strifecrow probably feels extremely grim right now, but Chalky has no area of effect, and he can hold on, especially with the heal bot.
yeah. So Chalky just needs to... he's got some cycle here. He's got Acolyte of Pain. He does have the Loot Hoarder on the board as well. Ooh, Goblin Blast Mage. Strifecrow is just ripping some pretty nice cards off the top here, allowing him to fight incredibly for the board. And all of them hit the creatures! But Chalky's got
Chalky
30 health.
mouths something there. It's like...
Big ears.
Okay, but Chalky continues to hold on pretty well. A lot of survival tools, gets the Frost Nova, Archmage Antonidas Frost Nova, even with all the stuff that Strifecrow is pulling. It looks like Chalky is about to lock this up.
Yeah. Strifecrow needs a fireball off the top just to survive another turn. And that's not going to be it. So Strifecrow looking like his tournament life has come to an end. As Chalky... Well, Strifecrow can Clockwork Gnome, ping his own Clockwork Gnome, and get emergency coolant. And he would survive. He would survive one more turn. Let's see. Nope, Rusty Horn.
Wait, that also works.
Rusty Horn also works!
But yeah, probably not worth humoring.
Yeah. Alright, well, Chalky, after a very close series, is going to take it and move on to the finals to face off against Dart. One of those 2 players will be going to PAX, joining Trump, joining Kalento, Pavel, Wafster, Nostum, 2 more, Tom, and Hoy. Pretty solid lineup, I'd say, and either Chalky or Dart will be joining them. Trump, who would you be most afraid of between Chalky and Dart?
Well, I actually alluded to this the other day, but I'm most afraid of someone who could come up with a really good deck, since the Grand Tournament is going to release by the time PAX Prime comes out. Presumably, I mean, it's August, but most people think it's not going to be August 31st that the Grand Tournament releases. So, Chalky, like you said, actually did really well in the Black Rock Mountain Race, which requires a lot of creativity and deck building. So, I'm a bit afraid of Chalky. Dart's actually been the one who's brought the most standard match. He's got the Warrior, the Hunter, the Rogue, and the Warlock, and, you know, standard's scary, but I'm more afraid of someone who can come up with something, like, out of the something crazy. So I'm afraid of Chalky, I guess.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely see who's going to come out on top of that one. As always, head over to geico.onog.com You can enter in to win your official TSM PC still. So the specs are pretty nuts on that thing. You can look at it on the official website, on the geico.onog.gg website. And you can also get a Geico quote. Once again, a big shout out to Geico, the title sponsor of this event. By going to the website and signing up for those things, it really helps show your support. And Geico will be more likely to get into really cool open summer circuits like this in the future. So definitely do that during the break. But we're going to go to a quick 2-minute break. Don't go anywhere, guys. The finals and the conclusion of feature tournament number 4 of the summer circuit will continue right after this.